Good evening, Sisa. Which aspect of tourism are you most concerned about at this point? I would guess air travel, given all the turbulence, but maybe there's something more concerning.
Yeah, good evening, Sally, and thanks for the opportunity to chat. You know, tourism has such a long value chain that you actually have to look at them in different stages. So one without the other doesn't quite work. And you are right, it starts with the front end in terms of just the movement, the logistics side, which includes air travel and also road travel as well, all the way down to experiences, etc. from their perspective. During the quiet period or the lockdown, essentially, some of these actually deteriorated. So therefore, it is about checking which state they're in and making sure that we can repair some of them as well.
How much revenue has been lost during the 6 months of lockdown? Do you have a figure? Is it possible to quantify?
It's a running tally. Just by example, that sector generates something like 30 billion rands per month, about R1 billion a day, and you can just extrapolate then in terms of how many months it's been out of circulation and the impact of that. And unfortunately, tourism is a perishable product. You can't make up what you've lost, essentially. A bed night is gone once it's not kind of occupied, and it is what it is. Now we're looking forward in terms of trying to claw back as much as we can.
Yeah. How quick will recovery be? It was interesting speaking to Lyndon Burns earlier. He estimates that 16.5 million less passenger journeys will take place this year compared to last year. I would imagine with all the laborious detail about who can fly, when they can fly, etc., it's going to be slow going, or maybe not.
It's going to be very slow going. There are just so many moving pieces and a lot of unknown at the moment, and the environment changes very quickly. So whilst on one side, you've got to look at how South Africa is being perceived by the world in terms of being a safe destination, we too have to look at other countries as well and assess their risk or potential risk to the country as well. We also can't assume that the airlines that used to fly to South Africa still exist, number one, or secondly, they'll continue with the same frequencies. Everyone has had to hit the reset button. And at the moment, each country's got its own ways of actually figuring out the risk side of it. So until it kind of stabilizes a bit, I think we're going to be in a bit of a turmoil or kind of fluid environment for the next couple of months whilst the world stabilizes.
Absolutely. And of course, now to this list, we know that our borders are opening up on the 1st of October. We've also heard that there will be travel between us and other African countries, which is great news because we do get a lot of revenue from tourists and visitors, business visitors as well, from the rest of the continent. But do you know anything about which countries are going to be on the list?
Yeah, look, I mean, that announcement will be made by Cabinet, essentially, in terms of that decision. But it's not very difficult to kind of get a sense as to which countries it will be. And if we remove the fixation around the countries, but rather look at the methodology or the matrix that will be used in terms of understanding which countries have a high prevalence of positive cases and which ones don't. And I think it'll be forming around those type of things. Also as well, it's just about the detail now as to how the negative COVID test will work, in terms of, the 72 hours that's been mentioned. But you got to look at the capacity of the traveling countries into South Africa, that they do have the testing capability, number one, and number two as well, we can rely on those tests that have been done from those countries of origin.
Yeah. If we look at the methodology, it certainly looks like the United Kingdom and the USA should be on our red list at the moment because infection rates are going up there. They're not doing well at all. Those are two really big markets. How much is that going to dent tourism recovery plans in South Africa if they're not on the list?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, those are big source markets, Europe and essentially, the US, including also Brazil as well, and India. So all of those are essentially in the top five. As I said earlier on, it'll be interesting then in terms of what kind of methodology does South Africa adopt that will then kind of siphon out as to how we will actually look at those countries. So essentially, from where I sit, I don't think certain countries will be barred, but there may be more requirements from those high-risk countries, because at the heart of this, we don't want anything that could pose risk or danger to South Africa, and we regress in terms of our advancement. We've come so far, we've made so many sacrifices, and we just got to make sure that we protect this. whilst at the same time opening up the sector, to recover.
Yeah, you're so right, and that is the thing we need to keep top of mind. Are you confident that tourism in South Africa can capitalize on our summer holiday season? We know a lot of people come through for the December period, and we've also heard that it's really narrow window to get those bookings in. Are you confident that we can capitalize on that season still?
Absolutely. I mean, all things remaining equal, and we see how South Africa, we are going down the list. I think we're number 5 in the world at some stage. We're number 10 at the moment. We've got to go down that list so that even other countries look at us as a safe place to travel to. I think that becomes quite important. The recovery of this sector is really going to be driven from the inside out, starting with domestic. And we've seen such a huge uptick in terms of the domestic market. I mean, we just come out of a long weekend, and all indications so far is that it's been chock-a-block. Places have been fully booked, restaurants really kind of to the hilt, and that's a good sign, as we start to push this recovery. And obviously, we also need the forex for balance of payments as a country, and again, that depends on a whole lot of variables in terms of attracting those markets. So I'm quite confident we will recover. We've estimated that the recovery to 2019 levels of activity will take anything between 24 to 30 months, so 2.5 years essentially to get back to those levels.
Sure, that is quite a long time, but at least you've been able to measure it, and thank you very much. Let's hope we can continue to capitalise on cabin fever after the lockdown. As you say, South Africa, an attractive prospect because our infection rates are really well under control. Tourism SA CEO Sisa Nchona speaking to us there.